This is the channel where we break down what the mainstream refuses to explain, what the headlines intentionally blur, and what could reshape the entire financial system right in front of us. If you value real time insight, deep analysis, and stories that connect dots before the crowd catches on, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Now, look, what I'm about to share today is not hype. It's not rumor, and it's not some far off future theory. This is happening now. Banks are officially using XRP, not testing, not simulating, not considering, but actively moving value with it, and the switch has quietly gone live. Most people have no idea. While retail investors are distracted by memes, short term price candles, and recycled FUD, financial institutions are doing something entirely different behind closed doors. They're integrating infrastructure, and XRP just crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. Here's the thing: banks don't move fast, they don't adopt experimental tech publicly, and they absolutely do not flip the switch unless the system is ready. So when you hear the phrase XRP just went live, that doesn't mean a press release. It means settlement rails are active. It means real money is moving. It means compliance, liquidity, and operational risk have already been approved. And once that happens, there's no going back to the old system. Let me break this down in plain English. For decades, banks have relied on a system that was built in the 1970s: slow, fragmented, expensive. Cross border payments can take days, sometimes weeks, with fees stacking at every intermediary, and every single transaction carries uncertainty. Banks hate uncertainty. They hate not knowing final settlement. They hate capital being locked up in nostro accounts across the globe. That trapped capital represents trillions of dollars sitting idle. XRP was designed to solve exactly that, not as a speculative asset, but as a neutral bridge between currencies. And now that bridge is open. What changed recently is not the technology. The tech has worked for years. What changed is regulatory clarity, institutional comfort, and back-end integration. Banks don't announce these transitions loudly. They go live quietly. They observe flows, they scale slowly, and then one day the volume explodes. That's the phase we're entering now. Multiple financial institutions have moved from proof of concept to production environments. That means live settlement. That means XRP is no longer theoretical liquidity, it's operational liquidity. And once a bank experiences real-time settlement, 24/7 availability, near zero transaction costs, and atomic finality, there is no incentive to return to legacy rails. None. This is why the price action you see today does not reflect what's happening underneath. Markets lag infrastructure, always have. By the time price reacts, the smart money has already positioned. Now, here's the part that most people miss. Banks don't use XRP the way retail imagines. They don't buy and hold it like a long-term investment. They use it as a tool, liquidity on demand. XRP is sourced, used for seconds, and released back into the market. That creates velocity, and velocity is what drives demand at scale. When transaction volume increases, liquidity requirements increase, and that's where price pressure emerges, not from hype, but from necessity. This is why live usage matters more than announcements. Once corridors go live, they don't shut them off. They expand them. More currencies, more regions, more volume. And all of it routes through the same digital asset, XRP. This is not a retail story anymore. This is a plumbing story, and plumbing is invisible until it breaks. Right now, it's being replaced quietly, strategically, and deliberately. If you're still thinking this is about one bank or one country, you're missing the scope. This is about interoperability. Banks don't want to depend on any single nation's currency. They want neutral settlement. That's the real value proposition. And this is why central banks, commercial banks, and payment providers all converge on the same solution: speed, cost efficiency, certainty. XRP delivers all three. And now it's live. Not soon, not maybe, live. If this information is already changing how you view the market, take 2 seconds and like the video. It tells the algorithm to show this to people who actually want to understand what's happening. Because the next phase of this story is where things get uncomfortable for skeptics. Once banks adopt new rails, they design products on top of them. That's when volume compounds. That's when liquidity deepens. And that's when the asset stops behaving like a speculative token and starts behaving like infrastructure. We're watching that transition happen in real time. And most people won't realize it until it's already too late to position intelligently. Now, let's talk about what going live really unlocks next. Because once banks activate XRP in production, the dominoes start falling fast. The first domino is trust. Banks don't trust press releases, they trust performance. Once settlement works consistently, once liquidity is reliable, once compliance checks are seamless, internal resistance disappears. That's when expansion begins. New corridors get added, transaction limits increase, treasury departments start reallocating capital, and this is where the real shift happens. Capital that was once locked in dormant accounts becomes mobile. That alone is revolutionary. Think about it. Trillions of dollars currently exist only to patch inefficiencies. Nostro and Vostro accounts are a symptom of a broken system. XRP removes the need for them. When that reality sinks in at scale, banks are no longer managing money the same way, they're freeing it. And when capital becomes fluid, new financial products emerge. Faster remittances, real time corporate treasury movements, instant international payroll, all powered by the same underlying rail. This is why adoption doesn't explode overnight. It compounds quietly. One bank connects, then another, then liquidity pools deepen, then suddenly the system reaches a tipping point. That tipping point is when XRP usage becomes unavoidable. At that stage, even banks that resisted are forced to integrate just to stay competitive. This is not speculation. This is how financial infrastructure upgrades always happen. The internet didn't replace fax machines overnight, but once it reached critical mass, fax disappeared almost instantly. We are approaching that moment for cross-border payments. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Why hasn't price already reflected this? Because markets trade narratives, not infrastructure. Narratives lag reality. By the time CNBC explains this, the opportunity window will be gone. Banks don't care about daily candles, they care about cost savings, and XRP saves them money at scale. That's all that matters. Here's something else that should grab your attention. When banks go live, they don't use pilot volumes. They stress test systems with real flows. They push limits, and every test increases liquidity demand. This is where XRP's design becomes critical. Fast settlement means low volatility risk during transfers. Deep liquidity ensures minimal slippage. The more banks participate, the more stable the system becomes. That's a feedback loop, and feedback loops create exponential growth. This is why dismissing XRP as old tech is one of the biggest misreads in crypto history. It wasn't early, it was waiting, waiting for regulation, waiting for institutions, waiting for the world to catch up. Now that alignment is happening, and it's happening faster than people realize. Another key detail: banks don't integrate something they plan to replace in a year. These systems are built for decades, which means XRP isn't a temporary solution, it's foundational. That has massive implications for long-term demand. Even if each transaction only uses XRP for seconds, continuous global settlement requires constant availability. Liquidity must exist before demand arrives. That's why institutions accumulate quietly. They don't chase green candles, they build positions when nobody is watching. And that's exactly what this phase looks like: low noise, high significance. If you're still here listening, you're ahead of the curve. This is the part of the cycle where understanding matters more than emotion. Fear disappears once you see the mechanics, and the mechanics are clear. Banks are live. Settlement is active. Liquidity corridors are expanding, and XRP is at the center of it. What happens next is not a question of if, but how fast. As volume scales, as more regions come online, as legacy systems get retired, the market will be forced to reprice utility, not hype, utility. That's when the narrative flips. That's when headlines chase price instead of the other way around. And that's when people will say, it came out of nowhere. But you'll know better. You'll remember this moment when the switch quietly flipped and the world didn't notice yet. If you believe clarity beats chaos and data beats noise, make sure you're subscribed to XRP Insider Network, because what's unfolding now is not just a crypto story, it's a financial system upgrade. And XRP just went live.